He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
Welcome to The Marlow Show. I'm Alex Marlow. Super cool show today. We are repurposing the Larry Elder show from yesterday where I hosted. I give you a little background of my history with Larry at the top of the show, so I won't reiterate that there, but it is a thrill. It's one of those treats that you get to have when you get to follow in the footsteps of one of your mentors. So thanks to Larry for letting me do this. But of course, I brought the heat for the show, of course, filling in for one of my idols. So we had Peter Schweizer with me breaking down the Trump-Putin summit. Joel Pollak also joined as well. We had some callers. I missed that caller interaction. I got into it with the lefty caller over Kaepernick, which was great. You're going to love that. But I gotta say, my favorite part of the show was playing this unbelievable video of James Comey coming out as a Swiftie, which is, if you listen to nothing else, you've got to listen to that. It was beyond belief. We were just cracking up in the studio with Larry's team. So it was a good time, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy this. But before we get into it, I got to tell you about the sponsor of the show, who are terrific people, the American Beverage Association. I want you to think for a minute about the drinks you grew up with and you still love today, the ones you got to have at the barbecue or in the break room or when you're soothing yourself because you're podcasting too much. We're talking Coke, Diet Dr. Pepper, Pepsi. You know what I'm talking about. What did I hit yesterday? I hit the Diet Cherry Coke. They got the novelty Diet Cherry Cokes out right now in some vintage packaging. It looks amazing. Iconic brands, part of the American story, and they have been for over 100 years. While everyone is talking about American jobs lately, the company behind these beverages have been talking about them. They've been walking the walk the whole time. America's beverage companies are making American products with American workers in American hometowns. That's the message. They employ over 275,000 men and women in all 50 states. They are people who show up every day, do the work, and deliver for our economy and our communities. You can see for yourself everything they're doing at wedeliverforamerica.org. wedeliverforamerica.org. I will say this is a pretty cutting-edge show. If you are desirous of additional cutting-edge commentary on the Breitbart Fight Club today, I speak to Bradley Jay, who is one of our political reporters, and we get into all the detail about the Putin summit, where things could go from there, plus some redistricting updates. If you want the freshest on that, then Breitbart.com, we got you covered over there at the Fight Club as well. I will also tell you about Crockett Coffee. That's what I've been drinking in the mornings. You guys know that I can barely get out of bed without the coffee. It's true. I'm looking forward to another cup right now. They got the light roast, medium, dark roast. You could be like a podcaster. You could be like a Western settler. This is great stuff. Roasted in our nation's heartland, company founded by Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, radio hosts extraordinaire and good guys. They're very kind about breaking the law, which I deeply appreciate. If you go to crockettcoffee.com, you get 20% off if you use the promo code Alex. You guys know I'm not bringing you coffee. That's not good. There's no way. I can't handle one. My self-esteem could not handle one email saying I don't like your coffee. This is good stuff. I'm giving you the good stuff here. crockettcoffee.com, Alex at checkout for 20% off. And let's get into the Marlow Show. That's really the Larry Elder Show. Check it out.
The Larry Elder Show starts right now on Salem News Channel.
I'm Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and former employee of Larry Elder, filling in for my old boss today. And we got a big news day ahead. We're going to be talking about the historic summit in Washington, D.C., the Red Carpet Summit, where Donald Trump has brought Volodymyr Zelensky, as well as so many of the European leaders, pretty much all of them, complimenting their tans, having a good time with them, and hopefully forging global peace. We hope so. Later on in the show, we're going to have Peter Schweizer as well to break all that down before I get into my unified field theory on lawfare, which I think is the biggest threat to MAGA and the conservative movement. I got a new book out on the subject, and I explain to you what it is, how bad it is, and what you, the citizens, can do to fight back against the lawfare superstructure. Check it out.
We've got a country to save. This is the Larry Elder Show.
My name is Alex Marlow, ladies and gentlemen, and I am thrilled to be in for my old boss, Larry Elder, the sage from South Central. I'm the editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, and I host the Alex Marlow Show on the Salem Podcast Network as well. I've written a lot of books. I got a new one. I'm going to tell you all about that today called Breaking the Law, out now in the New York Times bestseller list right now, which I'm pleased to report. But it is a true full circle moment for me, who started out in conservative media 20 years ago for the one and only sage from South Central, Larry Elder. We're going to get into what's going on in Washington today with Donald Trump, a historic summit with pretty much everyone who matters in Europe was there, and that is very noteworthy. He was holding court. He was having a great time, cracking a lot of jokes, and hopefully forging global peace. We'll be talking to Peter Schweizer a little bit later this hour, the #1 investigative researcher in all of conservative media. He also was our first national security editor at Breitbart News. We'll talk to him as well. Plus, I will give you my unified field theory on Lawfare and why it's the biggest threat to MAGA later on in the show, probably second hour. We'll get to that. Plus a lot of fun. We got James Comey coming out as a Swiftie, all sorts of fun stuff. But I can't help but start with a little bit about my history because it means so much to me to be in for Larry, because Larry means so much to me. I was a person who grew up in Los Angeles, and driving around LA, my parents would throw on talk radio pretty much 24/7, and I was getting an education. I was learning a lifetime of facts and information, and my #1 favorite host was Larry Elder. And when I found out he was a local guy, wasn't just some sort of a national guy, he wasn't someone who was afraid of being in touch with the people, I knew I had to eventually reach out to him, and I found the occasion when I was getting later in my high school years. I was at Harvard Westlake, a very famous school in Beverly Hills, and a prep school, very highly touted, and also quite left. And I thought, we need some balance here, and we want to get the sage from South Central. We got to bring him in to speak. And I thought this was an incredible idea. I thought everyone was going to be thrilled about this. And then I found out the administration did not find him to be an appropriate speaker, which I didn't understand. He's the smartest guy I ever heard talk. And so how could he be inappropriate because he brought this incredible perspective? And this is when Larry was in his real libertarian days as well. He was not some sort of a, right wing, we have to go into every single war type guy, and a billionaire should get paid by the poor people. I mean, this was not this was a man who was a very deep thinker and someone who I think had a lot to offer that would have been a nice alternative to all the other speakers. But I was cut off at the pass, but I used that as an opportunity to reach out to Larry and say, this is what I had in mind. And I really am appreciative of you. And he, being the magnanimous man that he is, reached out to me, and we made friends. And he invited me to write columns on his website and eventually appear my first radio hit while I was in college from my dorm at UC Berkeley, talking about bias on campus. And I got the bug. And that started out my journey in conservative media. And I became Andrew Breitbart's first employee at Breitbart News. I've been there 17 years since, and have been involved in pretty much some of the biggest moments in all of conservative new media. And it's all part of Larry's history. And Larry and I remain friends. He's been so kind to promote some of my stuff over the years and what we do at Breitbart News and all my books, and is just one of the nicest guys on the planet, and one of the most informed and one of the hungriest. I was noting to the producers when I was coming in today, I can't believe Larry's off, because I feel like my whole Twitter feed is just Larry tweeting. It's just nonstop. He can't stop doing it. Can't take his thumbs off those keys. But I owe him so much. And it was that resume item, me working for Larry, that I think was what impressed Andrew Breitbart when he was building his internet, his empire, that he thought, okay, that's the vote of confidence that I can get behind is Larry being there. And he's been through a lot. He should be the governor right now, but I'm glad he's got this show, and I'm glad that he and I are colleagues at Salem News. And I'll be here today and tomorrow at least, and we'll see how it goes from there. But having a blast already, and it's great to see the radio legend, Sean McConnell. I mean, it's just are you in the Hall of Fame yet, Sean, or not yet? It's got to be coming up. It's just a treat. Always great to see Sean's face. Very supportive, nodding along as we go. All right, well, let's get into the news, because it's a huge news day. And Donald Trump was holding court at the White House. He brought Volodymyr Zelensky, who kind of wore a suit. Now, what do we think of the suit, guys? Well, we'll play some clips here in a second, because he showed up. He did not get the red carpet treatment. He's coming out of his plane, and he's got the black T-shirt on, the same one I used when I was giving a bottle to my kids this morning. I had the double bottle going, the 3-year-old and the 1-year-old. They're both doing the cross-handed move. Same exact shirt as Zelensky, who's trying to meet the leader of the free world. A little bit disrespectful, do we think? I think so, a little bit. It turns me off a bit. As a guy who doesn't want to be in every single war, and we're funding his war, and we don't know where most of the money's going, probably to vacation destinations in Europe somewhere for oligarchs, it'd be nice if he could wear a suit. So Trump talked him into wearing something, which is nice. But the main thing is, can we get to peace? And this is the real puzzle. I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know how this is going to go. For the main point is, Zelensky has acted as though he is not willing to relinquish any territory to Putin, including territory that Putin's had since the Obama years. This is where I think Trump is in a very precarious spot because Trump wants peace. He's a peacetime president. He's already forged half a dozen different peace deals already at the beginning of his administration, and we're only half a year in. He's a guy who does not want war. He's a guy who wants the world to be a peaceful place. And so when you look at it through that lens, that Trump doesn't want this global distraction that's taking place, messing up the whole economic order worldwide, messing up European trade deals. He wants to calm this thing down, and he wants the credit because he's a guy who likes to get stuff done. He likes to move fast, break stuff, get scalps, get medals, get trophies, fill the trophy case. That's Trump's MO. This is on his list. So I'm trying to figure out, is there daylight? Is there room where Putin can give up something that he's okay with, Zelensky can give up something, and we can broker a peace? A few things I know. Putin is not going home unless he can declare this is a victory. He's not going to go back to Russia and say anything that could be potentially interpreted as anything other than we gained ground, we got the upper hand in this negotiation. Zelensky has a problem too. So once the war ends, he's irrelevant. He's getting increasingly less popular in Ukraine, where he's refusing to hold elections. More on that momentarily. And considering that what's he going to do? He's going to lose if he holds another election, and who knows if he even survives that long. So he might be better off keeping the war going, and that's exactly how he was talking today, and it's how he's spoken in the past, which is why we had that alarming Oval Office summit all those months ago. So this is the premise where we start. Putin's got to get a W somehow. Zelensky doesn't really want the war to end because that's what keeps the gravy train going, and it might be keeping him alive. And yet Trump is the one who really wants this peace brokered because that is the nature of things with the way Donald Trump operates. He wants peace. He wants to do things surgically, and he wants to cut a deal, and he wants to be done with it, and then he wants to move on to prosperous things, building things. He's a builder. He's going to do the cleanup. This is cleanup. He's cleaning up for Joe Biden's mess. And it's funny because later in the show, we'll talk a lot about my latest book, Breaking the Law, which is out now, and about the Lawfare superstructure. But my prior book, Breaking Biden, where I profiled the Biden family, a deep dive, historical accounting, I think, of the Biden years and Biden's history. The thing I'm most proud of in the book is that I was the first person, I think, on a major level to say that the Ukraine war was Joe Biden's fault, even more than Putin's. And I walk through the logic in a chapter where I talk about how Biden put only Russophobes in charge of his Russia-Ukraine policy, people who hate Russia, people who try to poke Putin in the eye, who have no respect for him and have no respect for the Russian history, anything like that. Not to say you should feel that way as talk radio audience. But these are people who are supposed to be diplomats, and they're the least diplomatic people on earth. They hated Russia. That's who Biden put in there. And more importantly, Biden and Tony Blinken kept teasing that Ukraine could one day join NATO. That is a non-starter for much of the world, especially Putin. And whenever America had done that stuff in the past, Russia always invades. Whenever there is this specter of Ukraine joining NATO, and thus the entirety of the Ukrainian territory would be gone from Russia's empire forever, unequivocally, because that means there would be a nuclear war if Russia ever tried to claw it back. Because remember, we're nuclear armed. So are other NATO countries. So that means if Russia goes and gets it, we're obliged to go to nuclear war on behalf of Ukraine. So Russia was not happy about that. So they always invade somewhere. That's what Joe Biden did. He provoked Russia and Putin to invade. Putin's a bad guy. I don't like Putin. No excuses for Putin. I can't think of anyone who likes Putin. But what I do know is that if Joe Biden had been so horrible in this policy, then Putin wouldn't have invaded. And now Trump is here and he's got this mess in his hands. He doesn't want it. He wants to get past it. So then what does a solution look like? I think a solution looks like that Ukraine is going to have to cede some territory. Donbass, Crimea, that's going to go. At least most of it's going to go. And then what is Putin going to have to give up in return to get this thing to stop? It looks as though Zelensky is demanding security, just sort of permanent security state, which is interesting to me because Ukraine should not be joining NATO. I don't want even a sort of a phony half NATO, which is what we kind of have now, where all the NATO countries protect Ukraine. I'm not into that. Too expensive, and I don't trust it. I don't trust we know where the money's going, and I don't want to get too entangled in this foreign entrapment that we're in right now. But there's got to be something, there's got to be a give and take. And when we come back from the break, I'm going to play some of the clips from the event. I'm going to go through what was being discussed and what is the European leaders, what they think is the common interests that are there. But security guarantees is the big question. Can we have security guarantees for Ukraine and realistically get to a peace? That's the big question. There's only one man on earth who could possibly broker that. That's Donald Trump. Will he do it? He didn't do it today, but are we days away? I'll tell you, the vibes were pretty dang good. All right. We also got a phone number here, 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-SAGE to be a part of the show. Alex Marlow, former intern for Larry Elder and host of the Alex Marlow Show on the Salem News Channel on the weekends, as well as the Salem Podcast Network every single weekday. Editor-in-chief of Breitbart News as well, in for the Sage today, and really happy to be here on a very busy news day. And Trump was in rare form, trying to broker a peace. I'm feeling the vibes. We did not get the specifics we wanted, but we're getting some good vibes that he could perhaps broker a peace that really was a disruption from Joe Biden, as I walked you through at the top of the show. But we've got some color here, and I'm going to play some of these cuts here for you folks. This is a fun one, but this is Trump talking to German Chancellor Merz. I want to play cut 21, please, Mr. Sean.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who's a great gentleman, great political leader in Europe generally, but now he's the NATO Secretary General, and you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much, Mark. Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom, our friend and my friend, and doing really well. And people like him a lot. We all like him. Everyone knows President Macron of France, who's been with me from the beginning, one of the first people I met as a foreign dignitary, and I liked him from day one. And I like him even more now. That's pretty good. That's unusual. That's a pretty unusual thing. Prime Minister Meloni of Italy, who's a really a great leader and an inspiration over there. She's served now, even though she's a very young person, she's served there for a long period of time relative to others. They don't last very long. You've lasted a long time. You're going to be there a long time. Chancellor Merz of Germany, who is a very strong person and a very strong leader and very highly respected in Germany. And he's my friend, and it's an honor to have him as my friend. Thank you very much. Very good. You look great with your tan. Where did you get that tan?
Can I cut in there, guys? This is what I'm talking about with this guy. This is just so beyond belief. He's like an insult comic in a way, and he just has the ability to roast you, and he does this in real time. I spent enough time with him to know this, that he just this is just how he operates. He's just always finding the humor and everything. And just think about the occasion here. He needs to meet with Zelensky, try to broker the biggest peace, the peace that everyone on earth wants more than anyone. And then he assembles all these European leaders, and basically because he can, he's like, let's just throw a party at the White House. It's like everyone just show up. I don't know what these guys' roles are exactly. It'd be nice. I have a theory that I will refer to momentarily, but he's introducing them. Like, this is almost like his NBA intro. I mean, I'm starting to want to hear the Alan Parsons Band come on with some of the intro music, some of the hype music. Maybe we can get one of those tunnels going where everyone's running through the tunnel, slapping towels. But that's basically what this is about. And he's saying that we're all here to get peace done. That's the point. And I'm in charge. I'm the big guy here. And you all are going to go through me. Peace is going through me. And so that's what's going on here. So he had a nice little rib for Zelensky as well. Let's play cut 4, please, guys.
Legal elections.
So you say during the war you can't have elections. So let me just say 3.5 years from now. So you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections? Oh, that's good. I wonder what the fake.
You like this idea?
No.
Speaking of news, I got a question for you. This sounds insane.
So isn't that unbelievable? He is making fun of Zelensky because Zelensky cut off the elections. He does not have elections right now. And people are saying he's not a dictator, but I don't understand what's the definition of dictator? Is there a guy who stops elections? Seems like that'd be number one. And he does not have a free press, and he suspended a lot of political parties who are potentially opposing him. There's no habeas corpus. And if there's no hostile press, no habeas corpus, there's no elections, then you're a dictator. And I think Trump is doing this. This is where he plays 3D chess. He's not just making fun of Zelensky here. He's making fun of the whole media that's championing this guy. At the same time, they're trying to champion democracy, that they're the stewards of democracy. Well, if they're stewards of democracy, then why is their hero a guy who dresses like a wartime dictator, doesn't have elections, doesn't have a free press? He's making an illustration of how absurd everyone is. But here is the main thing. Here's the thing I want to get to. This is the crux of the matter here. And I want to play cut 3, guys.
What security guarantees do you need from President Trump to be able to make a deal? Is it American troops, intelligence, equipment? What is it?
Everything. And really, it includes 2 parts. First, strong Ukrainian army. That's what I began to discuss with your colleagues. And it's a lot about weapon and then people and training missions and intelligence. And second, we will discuss with our.
Yeah, so that's where this guy loses me. What security guarantees do you need? And he says everything, and including American. He says not just everything in terms of the globally speaking. He's saying America needs to provide troops, weapons, etc. This is where you lose me, because our guarantees to him should be 0. We should have none. And I'm optimistic where this thing is going to shake out, that there are security guarantees. First of all, Putin's going to have to accept it, which I don't know why Putin would. So there's not going to be a peace unless there's something palatable for Putin. So Trump's going to have to figure out what that is. And who provides security guarantees? It's got to be Europe. Europe is much more higher stakes here for them than it is for us. This is much more their war than ours. And there's no imperative for the United States of America to provide any security guarantees for Ukraine. We're already kind of doing that because we keep funding them to the absurd degree that we are, $100 million plus more and more and more. That was when he started to lose me, by the way, when the first check to Ukraine was a round $100 million and 0 cents. I always found that to be sort of an absurd thing. So yeah, we ran the numbers and it just turned out to be exactly 100 million. That's how much it is. No, that's giving away the game. The game is that this is all some sort of a big grift, keep the war industry going and keep a lot of these oligarchs, keep their wallets fat, while also doing harm to Putin, who everyone seems to hate. That was the game here. And so we're not providing any security guarantees, at least in my opinion. That should not be the way it is, because it's just not our battle. We can't be providing security guarantees all around the world, and I highly doubt that Russia would accept it if we did. So what does that look like? Does Europe provide security guarantees? Maybe. And if so, how does a peace get brokered? The bottom line is, if there's any hint that Ukraine would become part of NATO at all, that amps up the intensity, because it makes it so that any sort of slight conflict could immediately devolve into a world war. And now that we have nuclear weapons, we can't play that game. Think about World War I. Think about how the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand leads to global war. Hundreds of thousands, not millions dead. We have to be very careful with this stuff. We cannot amp up the stakes for no reason. And that's exactly what he's calling for. He's calling for everything provided by America. And that's where I urge some caution here. When we come back from the break, I'll bring in Peter Schweizer here, who is one of the smartest guys in the world, period, and especially on topics like this. He's studied national security for a long time, he'll be able to help me break down what a peace could look like, but what is the common interest of the United States with the rest of Europe? But in particular, keep an eye on this concept that of course, we want to stop the killing. Of course, we want to stop the bloodshed. We all want this as humanitarians. Trump wants this for a million reasons as well. But the main thing that you have to look at here is, what is America's stake? Why do we want to put the possibility of American blood, treasure, troops, etc.? Why would we want American bodies on the line in this case? We don't, and that's the stakes right now. I'm Alex Marlow, in for Larry. I forgot you guys can do that here in Talk Radio Land. I call out Alan Parsons Project, and there goes Sean. He's right there with it. I forgot that. That's so fun. So I hosted on SiriusXM for 7 years, and I miss it dearly. But I moved out west, and I had a 6 a.m. show. And so I don't know if you guys can do the math on that, but that is 3 a.m. start. And I'll tell you, what they say is true. You get deeply unhealthy if you host a show at 3 a.m. It is not good. Your doctor is not happy with you. He keeps asking you how you can get out of it. And unfortunately, the only way to get out of it is just to say, I can't do it anymore, and not do it. But it is great to be in for the Sage from South Central. I'm Alex Marlow. Larry's intern, most favorite intern, I would say. Does Stephen Miller count as an intern? Because Stephen was in the picture a lot, but I don't know if he officially got the intern title that I got. But now I'm editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, writer of books, and host of the Alex Marlow Show podcast on Salem. And with me on the hotline now, Peter Schweizer, a 5-time #1 New York Times bestselling author. He's written a bunch of other, #1 New York Times bestselling author, has written many other bestselling books as well. Senior contributor to Breitbart News and president of the Invaluable Government Accountability Institute. He's got a great podcast, The Drill Down. His last guest was Mark Levin. I listened to that yesterday while I was hitting golf balls. It was a pleasure. Peter, it's great to talk to you, and I want to start with a clip because I want to set the stage here. This is President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and this is cut to, this is one of the most important clips of the day today. Check this out.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a very important moment. Indeed, we are here, Europeans, as friends and allies. We had a fantastic NATO summit. Together as the 2 largest and biggest economies in the world, we had the largest trade deal ever agreed. And now we are here to work together with you on a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. Stop the killing. This is really our common interest, stop the killing. And indeed, it's very good to hear that we're working on the security guarantees, Article 5 lies security guarantees, so important. But I want to thank you also that you mentioned the thousands of Ukrainian children that have been abducted. And as a mother and grandmother, every single child has to go back to its family. This should be one of our main priorities also in these negotiations, to make sure that the children come back to Ukraine, to their families.
Okay, so here's what I'm seeing in here, Peter, that's really important here, is that they're talking about security guarantees provided by the United States of America. This is something that I don't understand what is in our interest to do this, why Trump would be compelled to do this. I don't think that's how it'll shake out in the end, where we're talking about, committing U.S. troops on the ground. But what do you make of Europe's role in this moment, in this day at the White House? What do you think their role is there, and what do you think Trump wants to get out of them?
Well, I think Trump really sees Europe as sort of the senior responsible party here, meaning, in other words, they're in your neighborhood, they're right next door. Ukraine is part of Europe. So really, you are the ones that have the obligation to step up here and provide security guarantees. And this is a big step because during the Biden administration, Europe did a lot of moralizing. They did a lot of sermonizing. Okay, that's fine. But then when it came to actually doing the stuff to back it up, they expected the United States to do that, and that's what the Biden administration was doing. I think that what Trump is saying to the Europeans is, yeah, there are going to be security guarantees. You're going to provide them.
Yes.
We will support you. We will support you in providing them, right? If you commit French and let's say German troops or British troops there, in some sort of neutral Ukraine for a period of time, we will support you logistically. We might even provide intelligence. But there's no reason that American troops need to go halfway around the world to do that. You in Europe are capable of doing it. You need to step up. And I think that is the direction that it's going. And if you had told me 4 years ago under Joe Biden that was a realistic prospect, I would have laughed. It demonstrates Trump's ability to move people, not just move people like Putin. Everybody wants Putin to move, but actually move allied countries to step up and be responsible in the ways that they should.
Yeah, I was just emailed by Axios, which is a Beltway publication, who is hearing the security details, the security guarantees talk, and they know the base is not going to go with it. So they reach out and they ask me, well, what do you think of that? And my response, Peter, and then we're going to take a break and I want you to react to it. Consider anything Trump says at this point art of the deal, but the base knows there's absolutely nothing in it for us to have security guarantees for Ukraine. But if security guarantees come from Europe, not the USA, or literally NATO, which is basically the USA, and they're accepted by Putin, that's great. And if they come from the USA, that's not going to go over well with the base. So the president knows this, though. So I'm feeling confident things will net out in a good place. So I think that's what's happening here. It's art of the deal. I think Trump knows what he's going to get, or else I don't think he would have called this unless he felt very positive that people were in a good place, given his talks with Putin on Friday, which the media announced was a failure. I didn't think it was a failure. I think they were foolish to say that. I think Trump is looking good here, but the deal is not done yet. When we come back from break, Peter is going to give me his path to peace. We're back on the Larry Elder Show. Alex Marlow, host of the Alex Marlow Show, in for the Sage. They're kind enough to show my book there. On the front, Breaking the Law, the New York Times bestseller list. I'm talking to the #1 conservative author. I think Mike Levin might have a beef with that. You and Levin, Peter. Peter Schweizer's on with me. Peter, I can't read your whole CV. It'll take up the whole segment. But I want to get your path to peace here. What are you seeing? Because it feels like we're moving in the right direction. The vibes are strong. But what does a peace look like between Ukraine and Russia from your vantage point?
Well, I think you've got a really bloody fight here that goes back centuries. So, if you're going to have peace and a peace that lasts, both sides are going to have to give. So what does that mean? Of course, the devil is in the details, but I think, Putin is honestly, I think, in a pretty desperate state. If the numbers are accurate, the casualty side on Russia has been 1 million. So if he's going to strike a peace bargain, he's going to need to show something for what he's done. And what that could potentially be is the territory that Russia seized back in 2014. You remember there were two, in effect, actions here. First in 2014 under Obama, and then the invasion under Biden. So it is conceivable that Ukraine could say, okay, look, those territories that you took in 2014, there wasn't really any chance we were going to get them back. We're going to concede those to you in exchange for security guarantees from the Europeans. That is one possibility. The challenge, I think, and this is where Trump is going to really have to use his pressure, is to kind of cajole Putin into taking that, because what Putin's going to want is, no, we want the Donbass region. That's the big industrial heartland of Ukraine. He has not been able to take it. He's got part of it, but he doesn't have all of it.
Right.
And so he's gonna want that. I think that's too much. So I think if you actually want a settlement, you want this thing to go on for another 10 years and destroy multiple generations of both countries' young men, that's what a deal is going to have to look like.
So, but this is important, though, about these regions that were taken under Obama, because Zelensky's rhetoric, and he's not, I don't get the impression he's particularly bright, but he's not a dumb guy, and he knows he can't give away the whole game right away. But he's acting like he wants that back, and there's no realistic chance he's getting that back. Yeah. And look, he's doing in a way, kind of what Trump's negotiation would be in a real estate deal, right? He wants to buy your building. It's $400 million. What's he going to tell you? This is crap. The electrical's terrible. The foundation's cracking. I'll give you $200 million for it at the most, even though he's willing to settle, for $350 or whatever. So I do think there's an element of that. I also think there are domestic pressures in Ukraine itself. You look at the surveys, the poll numbers, the majority of Ukrainians want to have some kind of a peace settlement. They want the war to end. I think the military leadership, also wants a deal. So, look, it's going to require two things. I think, number one, you've got to get Putin to step back from his position, which is, I want to keep all the territory I have, plus. That's the first hurdle. The second hurdle is go to the Ukrainians and say, look, this is the best deal you're going to get. You need to take it. You're going to get a security guarantee. You're going to have French and, let's say, German and English, British troops there for a while. They're not going to. Putin's not going to allow them to join NATO, which was part of the original bargain going back to when Ukraine became independent in the 1990s anyway. And that, to me, seems like a reasonable middle ground. Otherwise, you're honestly looking at a situation a little bit like the Palestinian and Israeli situation, where both sides are claiming the same territory. And in that particular case, you're dealing with a terrorist organization that has been attacking Israel for decades. In this case, you're talking about Putin, who's trying to reclaim territories and has been unsuccessful in doing so. So maybe he'll sign a deal. So, Peter, your research has focused a lot on China, among many other topics, but your Red-Handed, Blood Money, your last two books on China focused. One party that's not present in this conversation is China. China's got designs on rebuilding Ukraine and I think getting more of Eastern Europe as part of their Belt and Road debt trap initiative that they've got going. This is one thing about a pattern with President Trump's foreign policy throughout the first half of this year in this administration, is that all roads do seem to lead to China. Almost everything he does, at least indirectly, puts pressure on China. Did that stick out to you with this summit today? No, I think that's a great point. Because here's what he's saying. The imbalance between the United States and Europe cannot continue. We've got 75,000 troops in there. Your economy is as big as ours. We're spending a lot more on defense than you guys are. This imbalance is unhealthy, and it's not going to continue. So let's start acting like partners.
Europe, you step up with Ukraine. That not only will help the Ukrainian people, it will also crowd out Chinese efforts to kind of influence the situation there commercially and strike a deal with Ukrainians. And what it does, frankly, is it prevents Zelensky from trying to cut a deal with the Chinese, because if the security guarantees are coming from Europe, he's going to be doing deals with the Europeans on reconstruction, not with the Chinese. So I think this is another example of what I call Trump's grand strategy. A lot of people think, Trump is impulsive, Trump is reactive. And sure, there are components of that. He kind of thinks aloud on some of these issues, which is fine. But what he does do clearly is have a grand strategy that is designed to contain and limit China and also weaken them. And we have not had a grand strategy in American foreign policy, I would argue, in this regard since Reagan in the 1980s towards the Soviet Union. So I think it's a very, very healthy and good step forward for the country.
It really is. And at a later date, Peter, we gotta flesh out every step of that, because it really is amazing. And literally everything that's done has a China connection to it, which is fantastic. I think that's and he does it without saying China to poke the bear, which I think would be, or poke the panda. I want to be specific here, Peter. So I want to look at what is, I want to do a vibe check here with you, because vibe looked positive to me. Do you remain positive? Frances Martell, our world editor at Breitbart, her official prediction is Ukraine and Russia will be at war 20 years from now. There's not going away. Ukraine bombed a Russian nuclear power plant over the weekend, which is, no one wants this. Even if you're a Ukraine fan, you can't want that. So do you feel like this is headed towards a positive place, or am I just being too positive?
No, I don't think you're being too positive, but also I think Frances is a student of history, and she's correct in, pointing out that, look, whenever you have this kind of a situation where this is essentially a battle that goes back centuries. The Ukrainians will tell you Kiev was founded before Moscow, ergo they're not growth from us, we're not growth from them. Russia will counter that, no, we have this common bond and we're really the senior partner. That makes it very, very hard. There's a history there. But the Russian casualties are massive, and Trump's efforts to continue to isolate Russia economically, their economy is struggling. One of his initiatives and pushes is to get the Europeans to stop buying Russian oil that is being basically refined and transported via India. They're not supposed to be buying that stuff right now, but they sort of get by with this loophole of buying it from India. You take that away, and Europe may be very well prepared to do that.
Yeah, Peter, hold that thought. Let's come back and wrap that up, and then I want to get you're taking a couple other legal matters. Be right back on the Larry Elder Show. Alex Marlow here, in for the Sage, and glad to be here. Peter Schweizer's on the line with me for one last brief segment. Peter, we were talking about how a potential peace between Russia and Ukraine could be good for business, could be good for deals, trade deals, et cetera, and what perhaps could lead to some significant growth, but it's provided that there's a lasting peace. And we know better than to get our hopes up in that region of the world. I certainly don't remember a time it was peaceful. It certainly predates my birth. But what do you think could be the potential if a deal gets done for that area, and perhaps a restoring of the Western alliance despite China?
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of promise and hope there. We don't want to get overly optimistic. I think Ukraine has a couple of hurdles. The first one, of course, is the war. If you actually get a peace deal done and they get some security guarantees, and they're going to need them, because, look, anybody who trusts Putin is a fool. I mean, he's going to be tempted to go again, so they need the guarantees. But the second problem Ukraine has is rampant corruption. And the economic development that Ukraine certainly can have and could have, it's got a very educated population, great natural resources, is going to be hamstrung unless that corruption is limited. That corruption honestly includes the current president, Zelensky. He wanted to get rid of the anti-corruption bureau in the government. There were massive protests to stop that. So bottom line, it's just the beginning. Peace is just the beginning, but we need to remain optimistic and keep pushing for these reform efforts, because I think the people of Ukraine, maybe not Zelensky himself, but the people of Ukraine certainly deserve it.
Peter, next hour I'm going to talk a little bit about my research in the lawfare against President Trump and his supporters. But one of the things that I'm already guarding against is what we discuss in our Breitbart Fight Club show, Breitbart Confidential, that I do for our premium members to Breitbart, about the fatigue of the investigations, and they don't tend to go anywhere. Where are places that you feel like this administration should be investigating that's clear corruption, where you would start? And what do you think would be the top priority for you if you were the top investigators for President Trump?
Well, that's a great question. I think first you have to begin with the contracting process in the federal government itself. We've seen some of that come out with the nonprofit grants that were sent around. I think it's a massive problem of self-enrichment. I think the second thing we have to look at is violation of the Stock Act, which is insider trading by members of Congress. The Stock Act says you're not allowed to engage in it. We know they are doing it. All you have to do is look at their returns. The average stock, professional underperforms the market massively, the stock indexes. Most members of Congress that actively trade are far exceeding the stock indexes. That is just not mathematically possible unless you're going to argue that these people are brilliant hedge fund managers. And come on, nobody's going to seriously argue that. So I think insider trading is another key element of this investigation. And I think it comes at policing what's going on in Washington, D.C., and it's very, very hard to do. We also need to continue to investigate elements of the deep state. Statute of limitations may have run out on some things involving Russia.
Yeah, but we got to expose anyway, and then give people, the voters, that information when they go back to the polls. Peter Schweizer, amazing stuff as always. Government Accountability Institute is his research arm. He's a senior contributor for Breitbart. The Drill Down podcast, any of his books are terrific. And he's a great friend, a great mentor to me as well. I'm Alex Marlow, host of The Alex Marlow Show, author of the book Breaking the Law. We'll talk about that next hour. And this is The Larry Elder Show. Thank you for that, Sean. My name's Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, host of The Alex Marlow Show on the Salem Podcast Network. And you can also find it on the weekends, the Salem News Channel. And I got a new book out. It's called Breaking the Law. But most importantly, I want to share how much I love Larry Elder, who I owe so much to. He was my first boss in conservative media back when I was in college. Interned for him part-time. And, internship, it's not always that glamorous. You have to get his car washed sometimes. I reorganized his bookshelf. I did such a good job. I imagine that's still intact. It's if he hasn't moved. I don't think he's moved. So I think it's still there. And occasionally I get to research for his column. I researched for a book called Stupid Black Men, which I think they tried to change to What's Race Got to Do with It or something. I like Stupid Black Men. That was a better title when we did that. One of my big accomplishments was I was in studio with Larry one time, and someone was complaining, some celebrity was complaining about how racist Architectural Digest was, and then I found for Larry that the person who'd been on the cover the previous month was Samuel L. Jackson. So I pointed that out. That was a nice dub for me in the studio. And I got hired by Andy Breitbart, largely on, I think, Larry's support, and became the first employee of Breitbart News, and have been not just, I would say, a front seat to history. I think I get to be a part of history, being part of a wave of internet pioneers that have taken back the culture. And from the establishment news media, we got the news today that MSNBC is going to rebrand. They're going to call themselves MS Now. And I think it's like my source on news and world. You can't even keep up with it. But the point is, their brand is so shot, and it's so shot by folks like us, conservative media, the people who had made fun of them and just used, even though they were bagging a lot of cash, but we destroyed them. And I did a lot of research. News Opinion World. Thank you, Sean. News Opinion World. I get it, because I guess those are sections of a newspaper, but that's sort of news. I go there for news. I get it. I go there for opinion. I get it. But I go there for world. Like, how many of you tune in to MSNBC for world? That's what I do. If you ask your strange, crazy cat lady aunt who watches, and look, we only have the best cat ladies, okay? So I'm not anti-cat lady, okay? But I'm saying that if you did do that, then they wouldn't say I go there for world. That wouldn't be why they would watch. So they're so lost. And the point is, because NBC News is part of NBC Comcast Universal, which is a major conglomerate that has suffered mightily by trying to protect the corporate status quo instead of reporting the news to people. And when you continue to tell people the walls are closing in and then they don't actually close in, which is what they did for years with Trump, you're going to lose audience, you're going to lose credibility, and eventually you're going to be compelled to rebrand. But the logo is just horrific. I don't know if you guys are able to pull this up, but people are saying that the MSNBC, the new logo, it's got a folded, rippling American flag on it, and the flag kind of looks like a P, which doesn't work great in front of MS Now, so it kind of looks a little like PMS Now, which is not really my type of humor, but you can't not see it once you see the brand. So they might need to they might need to take a mulligan on this. Do you guys remember the first Trump-Pence logo where they had the T inserting into the circle of the P, and then people were like, no, guys, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. We're trying to be cooler now. Like, this is not cool. And they did rebrand it. So we'll have to see. But it's been a great time to be a part of conservative media and to get to see not just the rise of MAGA, but just to see the downfall of some of the establishment. But the problem is that Andrew Breitbart, my boss, my mentor, the person who is more than any other person, aside, I don't know, maybe you could put Rush Limbaugh up there, just credit for paving the way for what is the current dominance of conservative media in our culture. And one of his things is he would point out how the left was actually wielding power. And he was pointing out how it was really the news media and the entertainment industry that were the driving force. He would say the culture is upstream of politics, not the other way around. So, and that, of course, makes sense now. We saw the rise of Obama, who was a half-term senator who was anointed by Hollywood. And then we saw the rise of Trump, the biggest reality star in the world. But when Andrew was saying this 20 years ago, it was totally new. It was revolutionary. And people were not understanding it, that really winning the culture wars is not second priority. That's the top priority. You got to do that. And so we did. We won them. And so now we're the cooler ones. I mean, they even gave us Sydney Sweeney. Like, they just said that you can take her. Like, the left just said she's too hot for us. We can't handle that. Like, we need Lizzo only. We need Kathy Griffin only. No one else. That's all we can handle. We can't handle anyone who looks great in jeans. Like, that's not our speed. So this is where the left's at, and we've co-opted all the cool stuff online. We have the best memes. We're the funniest. But it doesn't mean the left stopped working. They're always working. And they just find new ways to try to commandeer the republic. And they've done it with the corporate boardrooms, where they wokeified a lot of the boards, where people were all of a sudden, the NFL, they're still doing it with the racial sloganeering in the end zone. They're still doing that stuff. It started with Kaepernick. Did you catch that ESPN, by the way, is shelving a Kaepernick docuseries with Spike Lee? I mean, what a headache that must be. It's like, we're going to do a Kaepernick series, and we're going to get Spike Lee to direct it. I mean, he only's got one gear, and that's right on the nose, Spike Lee. He doesn't have any. He's only got one, and I'm going to beat you over the head with it. And I don't hate all of his movies, but you have to go into the movies knowing that he's got a message, and he's going to make damn sure that you're aware of what that message is. Who wants a Kaepernick documentary right now? Is there anyone who really wants that? I can't imagine. But apparently ESPN doesn't. So we're winning the culture wars, but they open up these new fronts, the corporate boardrooms, for example. And one other one, which has been the subject of my research over the last year and a half, and that's been lawfare. And we all know lawfare is going on. We all know the left is commandeering the legal system to try to subvert the democracy, to try to rig elections, to try to harass people. But I don't think people fully understand the exact threat that this is. And I want to start from this premise, that the left believes power is above all else. They believe the most important thing in the world is political power. They believe that above God, above family, above your vocation, whatever it is, the thing that matters most to them, it's not truth, it's not fairness. My friend Dennis Prager talks about how truth is not a left-wing value. This is a perfect example of this, is they want to achieve power by any means necessary. When I was a student at UC Berkeley, they used to have a club. It was Affirmative Action Club or Race-Based Preferences Club. But the name of the club was BAMN, B-A-M-N, by any means necessary. So we saw that in Butler. We saw what any means necessary means. It means we will literally shoot you in the head if it comes down to it. So, of course, they're willing to try to manipulate the legal system in order to gain power. And they're willing to do that. And they've done this. And we've survived it to this point. But when you understand that this is where the effort is taking place, it gets very scary. And when you look at all the major cases against President Trump, and I investigate all 6 of them, each one of them has a connection to the Joe Biden White House. And I'll walk you through some of those momentarily. But this should be entirely unacceptable to we the people. Because in the due process provisions of our Constitution, of our statutes, that you are entitled to equal protection under the law. You're not allowed to be the subject of a political persecution. It's against our Constitution. It's anti-Constitution. Now, we understand the left doesn't love our Constitution. They don't even like it most days. But it is still the law of the land. And we've allowed for them to basically normalize the throwing out of the Constitution in order to rig our elections. And that was the main goal of it, is they were intervening via lawfare, via the judicial process to try to make sure that Donald Trump was in jail during the 2024 election. That was the goal. And if you wonder why they stuck with Joe Biden so far, as long as they did, it's for this exact reason, because they believed that Donald Trump would probably be in jail. And if he was not in jail, he would be a broken man who was bankrupt and was in the fetal position on the floor somewhere, probably at one of his country clubs, instead of trying to become the leader of the free world. And so we watched as case after case played out. But it wasn't just Trump. It was others as well. In the meantime, they're engaging in political persecution of the J6 prisoners. They're debanking people. They're trying to unperson people. And now they're trying to disbar people, attorneys, who have no other purpose other than to try to provide the best legal, the most legal counsel for their clients, which you're entitled to as an American. You know the Miranda rights? You're allowed to have you're entitled to an attorney, to the point where even if you can't afford one will be appointed to you. So Trump, of course, can afford the best attorneys in the world, which is partially why he was able to last as long as he did, where he could at least string out the process, even though these courtrooms were cooked in many cases. But we cannot allow for this to get normalized, and we're running that risk right now because we've accepted this premise that Trump won, so maybe we vanquish lawfare. No, we haven't. It's happening right now, and they're working overtime. They're working double time right now to make sure that we've had our last free and fair election in this country. And I'll tell you, the last one was not free or fair. It was only because there was divine intervention that assured us that Donald Trump would survive that assassination attempt, to survive the onslaught that he had to endure, and to take the White House again. He's doing all this good. But one of the things that must be done is the investigations must take place. I'll walk you through where those should go next. And then after they take place, we need the perp walks and the handcuffs. But even more than that, we need civic engagement. We need a renewed vigor to not stand for this stuff. We need equal protection under the law. We need to be a society of law and order. The left hates law and order. We love it. That's what we're conserving as conservatives. If we're not conserving a nation of law and orders, then what is it that we stand for? Law and order is the fundamental to our democracy, to our republic. I'm going to get into that more after the break. I'm Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, in for Larry. Be right back. All right, the announcer read my mind. We'll be taking calls here shortly, 888-971-SAGE. I'm Alex Marlow, in for Larry, former intern, now editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, host of the Alex Marlow Show. I'm talking a little bit about the lawfare and trying to restore integrity to our voting system, our electoral system, which is under assault constantly by the left. Trump tweeted today, or I guess he truth-bombed, Truth Social, I'm going to lead a movement to get rid of mail-in ballots, and also, while we're at it, highly inaccurate, very expensive, seriously controversial voting machines which cost 10 times more than accurate and sophisticated watermark paper, which is faster and leaves no doubt. And at the end of the evening, as to who won and who lost the election. So this is big, because what Trump is trying to do is restore integrity of the system, because one thing that sows a lot of chaos in America, which is something that the George Soroses and the people who fund the institutional left, that class of fake philanthropists who are really just trying to spread money around to get leftists elected and to get them more power, they all would like a more chaotic system because it makes it easier for them to cheat. So we had a very simple system where you vote on one day with a paper ballot, similar system, dependable system, and normally there's a lot of leeway for localities and for states to be able to control their own elections. But the problem is in California, where I am, where the stage is, then you get this thing where you just vote for weeks on end. You start voting early, you don't get results for weeks, and we've just normalized it as if that's what it is that we do. We just accept it, and we shouldn't. We should not accept things in our system that we have just determined must be just the way it is, even though they're unfair. And that's what I see in President Trump, which I think is really interesting and is an important thing, that he's willing to rethink things that were thought as fundamental. He did it with our trade deals, for example. We were told we'd be getting all this inflation because of trade, and we're not. We've been told that the rest of the world would not come to the table to broker deals with us, and they are the biggest deals in history. They were talking about it today. A lot of these European leaders, they're becoming closer with us. Their allyship is becoming more powerful because Trump's redone trade. And now we're seeing stuff, the spirit that we're seeing in Texas, the redistricting spirit, where we're thinking about, well, who's going to drop the districts? It's the people in power. That's who's going to do it. There's no council of elders that everyone trusts that can come in from on high and just say, no, this is how the districts are going to go. We wouldn't trust anyone to do that. If anyone was going to assemble a commission, they'd probably make one with people who write opinions at the New York Times. Like, that's who they'd try to put on the commission. We don't trust those people. So we should do it. If we get the power, we should do it. And one other thing that we should do, since we have the power, is try to restore our system of law and order as not having 2 tiers of justice in this country. In fact, we kind of have 3 tiers. We've got the Donald Trump and the J6 prisoners tier, which is just for existing, you must go to jail. And then they've got the tier that most of us are in. And then they got the tier for the James Comeys and the Hillary Clintons and the James Clappers. These are the type of people who get contributorships on cable news. These are the types of people who get book deals because they've broken our legal system. And I say that literally and figuratively. These guys are clowns and frauds. We got this Comey clip. Do we have it isolated with some of the good stuff here? Guys, I can't resist playing that. I'm sort of interrupting my own flow, but I think this digression is going to be worth. Let's play some of cut 1 here. This is what James Comey, the former FBI director, one of the most powerful law enforcement people on the planet. Let's see what he's up to these days.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to my Substack. Last week's cold turns out to have been COVID. Quite a flashback. And Donald Trump is still president and still humiliating America on a national stage, standing next to Vladimir Putin. It's like a dream, a bad dream you can't.
Okay, pause. So first, if you guys are missing the visuals of this, it's a total hostage video. It literally would look no different than if you actually had a hostage video. And Sean, is he just oozing charisma? I feel uncomfortable doing the rest of the show. I feel like I should stop and just watch Comey videos so I can learn how to present to a camera. I mean, he's got a little thing I like to call it. Okay, continue.
But I don't want to talk about that bad dream this week. I want to talk about a truly inspirational public figure named Taylor Swift. Of course, I watched her podcast interview with the Kelsey brothers. Of course, I watched the whole thing, although on YouTube, Patrice and I got kicked off for the last 15 minutes and finished it on her phone.
No!
But I watched it. You see, Taylor Swift and I go way back.
How did he get kicked off, Sean? Pause. How did he get kicked off? The poor guy. He was jamming with Taylor and the Kelseys. He must have been in heaven. He was riding 86, 47, 69, whenever he was riding on the beach with his rocks. And he was as happy as he's ever been in his life. What's going on here? Do we have infrastructure in this country? How does James Comey internet drop when he's watching the Swifties? This cannot stand. Okay, go on.
First concert of hers 15 years ago. I've been to a second, and I have helped financially support the attendance of a lot of family members at others. I'm in a family's Swiftie group chat. I know all her music, and I listen to it in my headphones when I cut the grass. So yes, I have a favorite of hers, although honestly, for me, it's a tie between All Too Well, 10-minute version.
Okay, pause. So I was saying, we have 5 minutes of this, and I was saying that that's too much. We can't play it all. Maybe it's not long enough. Maybe we just clear everything out. We just tell all the guests to go home. We'll just do this. But I want you to understand that the left is paying consultants to try to figure out why they're not appealing to young males, like why they're using the young male vote. And this is one of the faces of the resistance. That's why he did the 86-47 thing on the beach. 86 is, of course, a assassination dog whistle. Of course it is. Anyone who's worked in the restaurant industry or anything like that, as I have, knows that 86 means we're eliminating something. Eliminate. That's what he's doing. So it's we're joking now, but we really shouldn't be. And what his deal is that this is an individual who got away with subverting the law. And I go through this in Breaking the Law, that he tried to manipulate the legal system in order to try to get a Russia investigation, a special counsel appointed to take out Donald Trump, even though now we know the Russian collusion thing was a hoax. Now, I could go on and play the Swift video, but I want to make this point. That if no one is perp walked, if no heads roll, figuratively speaking, I want to be clear, from all the lawfare that was done against President Trump that was designed to subvert our democracy, that was designed to rig our election so that you were not allowed to choose the president, so that the James Comeys and the James Clappers and John Brennan, so they were the ones who would choose the president for you. If you are comfortable with that in this country, then we are not going to survive. And that's what I'm saying here. This is a call to arms. So the reason why I wrote Breaking the Law is for 2 purposes. The first one is I want a primer for where the investigations ought to go. I clear up all the differences between all of the 6 major cases against President Trump. I give a history dating back to FDR of lawfare, how it comes from the left, what their main objectives are, their triumphs and their failures, so that you understand really what we're up against, but also what they're doing now and why a call to arms is necessary. Because if we do not engage civically at the moment, then we're going to put the James Comeys of the world with his goofball pandering to Swifties to try to get voters for his side. We're going to put those people in power, and they're going to be retributive. They're going to be the type of people going to seek revenge on those who oppose them. And I'm putting I'm popping my head up above the burn here, because these people are not going to like that I'm calling them out. And I'm naming names, and I'll introduce you to new names in the book as well. But part of it is because if we don't have investigations, we don't have accountability, then there's no integrity to the system. But I know as well as you, it's time to be cynical sometimes, and maybe we won't get those things. But if we don't, what we need is we need bigger civic engagement. We need people like you fired up, not taking years off, not taking seasons off, not acting like you only participate in democracy once every 2 or 4 years when you go to vote. It's an everyday process, or else we're not going to have the accountability that we need and we deserve in this country. I'm Alex Marlow, in for the Sage from South Central, and we'll be right back. Sean, do you like this one? Are you saying something about yourself with this one? I guess it's not bad. It's just bubblegum pop, though. So it's sort of non-offensive. Is that what's going on with this? Yeah, it's all right. It's not bad. Look, it's I don't want to be contrarian all the time. So we're talking a little bit of Taylor Swift, and James Comey is a huge Taylor Swift fan, but you can see it in his face. You can just see it, that he just loves Taylor Swift. And he's got great taste in music. That's one thing I know about James Comey, is he is a guy who knows his stuff. All right, I wasn't lying. I want to take calls here. John in Santa Monica, welcome to the Larry Elder Show. John, you're on with Alex.
Hey, you ought to play I Will Survive. The first disco Grammy was one of the kickoff songs for the whole disco genre. So I would be putting some bumper music up there. I Will Survive.
So hold on, and guys, and you can make requests of Sean all the time, and that's not just for today. You can call in every day and ask Sean what you want to hear in the buffers. You can, but John, why would you want I Will Survive? It's just because we're all trying to survive something or other these days?
You bet. And the song that kicked it off was Never Can Say Goodbye. And Donna Summer and Gloria Gaynor were some original. And where did disco come from? Discotheque. Okay. All right. Here's my big breaking story. Today, the governor of California has introduced the ACA 8, which is a constitutional amendment to eliminate the current redistricting commission. And he's also introduced SB 280, which will finance the $200 million special election in November, and AB 604, which is the new map for the districts. That is today, right now in California. That'll be voted on this week. 2/3 vote in the legislature, and then all it takes is 50+1 to change the Constitution of the state of California. That's where we're at in California with gerrymandering.
So one thing that is really interesting here is that, John, we've got in California, where you and I both live, they're acting as though it's extremely offensive that there's gerrymandering going on in Texas. Even though this country's had a rich history of gerrymandering, none of us like it, but not one person can tell me a better approach to it. And I'm going to try to do this on the show tomorrow, where someone can maybe explain to me. I got a guest coming in who might be able to help us actually understand what could be better than this. But to the victor goes the spoils. You win, you get to drop the districts. This is how it's always been. And so what's happening simultaneously is Newsom saying, we are so offended. This is a threat to our democracy that people are redistricting. So I'm going to redistrict even more. And that doesn't make much sense to me, because the hypocrisy is just too on the nose. If he was really a real leader, wouldn't he re-gerrymander all the seats so that maybe the Republicans picked up a seat? And he should just say, hey, as a good faith effort, I'm going to drop the seats the way they should be. And the Republicans, you guys are going to get one. But instead, that's not what they're saying. They're saying we're going to neutralize Texas. Let me play a audio clip here. John, you can hang with me here, but play Barbara Boxer, cut 11, please.
Let's talk about reality, not ideology. What's the reality on the ground? People are hurting. They're scared. And we need to fight fire with fire. I so agree with everything that's been said and all of the legal issues that have been discussed. We have great attorneys going toe-to-toe with these people.
They do.
And you're so right. the elections are run by the states. So, you know, California's Governor Newsom is not sitting by. If the Texas gerrymander goes forward, we can pick up 5 seats here in a heartbeat. So we're fighting back. That's what we should do. That's what the people want us to do.
So this is the point here, is that they are we're fighting fire with fire. This is what is in their heart. They've already gerrymandered the state so much. John, what's your reaction to all that?
Well, yeah, and here's what I'm saying. Light up the phones, okay? Light up the phones. And you call the governor's office. I can give you the number here. People can look it up online, Google it. Call your state senator. Call your state assembly member. Call the governor and say, no, take the $200 million and put the water in the reservoirs. Yeah. Take the $200 million, throw that at the film business. Take the $200 million. You already spent $24 billion on homeless that went nowhere. But the $200 to send a ballot to every person in the state, make all the pamphlets, all the pro and con, hold the election, the whole business is going to be probably more than $200 million for this for Gavin Newsom's new hair gel.
Yeah,
this is insane. We just put the thing on the Constitution. Our independent districting commission is in the Constitution. We just put it in the Constitution, and now we're going to take it out.
John, let me run here. Gavin Newsom has got his hands full. He had to flip-flop on an oil policy he had because he wanted to cut production. Now he wants more production because we could be heading towards $8 a gallon gas here in California while energy prices are coming down across the country. He's got trouble here, and we got to get the word out. I'm Alex Marlow in for Larry. We'll be right back. That's my friend, The Sage. I'm Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, host of the Alex Marlow Show on the Salem Podcast Network. Give me a subscribe. I think you'll like it. In fact, I promise you, I guarantee it. It's a guarantee. It's a security guarantee that you'll like it. We got news here that we've got perhaps a Zelensky-Putin meeting coming up. I'd be nervous about both those guys showing up at a meeting. Who knows what could break out? But maybe some peace. Who knows? But apparently Trump is arranging that, and we'll have more details, a lot of details in the first hour of the show. Those of you who like to get caught up on podcasts or etc. And the Salem News Channel, great way to catch up with things as well. The president is bringing some alpha energy here, and I am all for it. Can we play cut 17, Mr. Sean?
So between paper ballots, very, very important, paper ballots, and I think maybe even more important, the mail-in voting. We're going to end mail-in voting. It's a fraud. If you have mail-in vote, even Jimmy Carter with this commission, they set it up. He said the one thing about mail-in voting, you will never have an honest election if you have mail-in. And it's time that the Republicans get tough and stop it because the Democrats want it. It's the only way they can get elected. Because with men and women's sports and with transgender for everybody and open borders and all of the horrible things, and now the new thing is they love crime. They're fighting me on the fact that I've made Washington, D.C. safe. We're not going to get mugged, beaten up, or killed like all the people you've been watching get so badly hurt. I'm glad. I hate to take your time with this, but I'm glad you asked me that question. We're going to stop mail-in ballots because it's corrupt.
I think we got it. You guys got that? It's transgender for everyone, or we're going to stop mail-in voting. Those are the stakes. Trump's laid it out, and I agree completely. Transgender for everyone. What a great turn of phrase. But he's right about this. If we are serious about winning elections, then we need to end mail-in voting, or as I call it, Breitbart News, cheat by mail. I've been calling it this for a long time, since before all the 2020 stuff. We call it cheat by mail. Why do they like mail-in voting so much? Because it's easier to cheat. That's why they like it. It's not a higher integrity system. The same reason they don't want people to have voter ID at the polls. It's not because of voting access. They don't really think certain races are too dumb to get an ID. They're trying to make it so that it's easier to rig elections. And Trump is saying, well, we're not going to help you. If we're in power, we're going to do things that maybe make it more difficult for you to win elections and maybe easier for us to win elections. That's the spirit that Donald Trump imbues the Republican Party with, and it's new and it's great. And this is one thing that we saw in him so many years ago at Breitbart News. And it's also why I warn that you can't beat that level of riz, as the kids say, with what James Comey has to offer. Let's play some Comey, Mr. Sean.
Between All Too Well, 10-minute version, and Exile featuring Bon Iver. Taylor Swift has grown up with my family. and provided us a soundtrack, really, as we've grown ourselves and learned and adapted and dealt with adversity and celebration. She had songs for all of it. I suspect that's something that millions of Americans...
Can I say one thing? I do not want to be a fly on the wall for that. There's a lot of rooms I would like to be in, and I wish I was privy to conversations. The Comey family dancing around to Taylor Swift is not high on my list. That is one of the last rooms I want to be in. And in fact, I don't even know what happened. I don't need to know what happened. And in fact, I don't think anyone needs to know what happened. But yet James Comey is sharing this with us for some reason. Do we know where this is going? I had a busy day. I had a lot of podcasts record and stuff. I was working a webpage. There's peace being talked about in Washington, red carpet, every world leader. Does Zelensky even wear a suit today? I didn't have time to really dig into why is he putting this out. Does anyone know? Callers, please tell me. If you guys know, 888-971-SAGE. Tell me why Comey is doing this. Continue, please.
Have also experienced in their families. I think that's because Taylor Swift produces great art, but also because she models something. At every stage of her career, she's shown a certain way of being that resonated with my kids and also felt right to me as a parent. And she's still doing that as a grown-up. Like a lot of you, I struggle with how to stand up to bullies without letting their meanness infect me and change me. You may have seen that the governor of California...
Is this 7-foot-tall, 65-year-old man talking about how he looks to Taylor Swift for inspiration because of his bullies? It's like he's bullied so much he needs to turn to Taylor Swift. I just want to make sure I'm hearing this correctly. Have you guys seen how tall James Comey is? He's gargantuan. He's gargantuan. It's a freakishly high height, and he's 6'8". I mean, that's if he's crouching down. I mean, he's got to be way taller than that. What an odd duck this guy is, and it felt like he needs to tell the world that just what is he getting after? That is really special. I got to say, I think he'd just be easier if he just asked her out, right? I mean, he really liked to go to the movies with her or something. All right. That's where we're at. And I want to contrast this with what Gavin Newsom's putting out there. So see what Trump's putting out there. This is what Newsom's talking about. Play cut 16 for me, Sean.
Hey, President Trump, it's time to stand down. It's time to make another phone call to Greg Abbott. This time, instead of calling him and telling him you're, quote unquote, entitled to 5 congressional seats, it's time to tell him to stand down. It's time to recognize that democracy is at risk. It's time to, dare I say, do the right thing. Actually, see how that feels for you, doing the right thing. If you don't, California will neutralize anything you do in the state of Texas. California will continue to punch above its weight. We believe in democracy. We believe in the enduring values of our founding fathers. 249 years. We're not going to sit back passively. We're not going to sit back and watch you light democracy on fire. We will fight fire.
It's such performance art, and Trump doesn't do this stuff. Trump is so authentic, but when he breaks into the staccato tone and then he interrupts himself so he could speak like this with the big breaks in between the syllables, you know that he's getting into phony mode. And if you're sick of this democracy talking point, and I'm incredibly sick of it personally, that is one of the reasons why I wrote Breaking the Law, because the left hates democracy. They hate its core tenets. They hate things like law and order. They hate letting the citizens, the populace, actually decide who their representative leaders are. They like the idea of rigging elections. That's why they like cheat by mail, and that's why they tried to keep Trump out of the White House by putting him in a jailhouse. And they forced him to campaign from courthouses in unwinnable trials where the cook, jury, and judge were going to make sure he was going to lose. That's what they think of our democracy. And then they have the nerve to go out there and say, we're going to be the ones who are going to save democracy because Greg Abbott in Texas is going to redistrict the same way we've redistricted. It's so phony. These people should not be trusted with anything. We're going to vote them all out. Starts right now on the Larry Elder Show. I'm Alex Marlow. Be right back with your calls. Nice little fiddle remix. I like that, Sean. Very clever. All right, let's go to the phones. Kevin, Upland, California. You're next up on the Larry Elder Show with Alex Marlow.
Hey, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I sound good.
Okay. Hey, I just wanted to point out that if Trump saying, I won the majority in Texas and blah, blah, blah. Trump won the election in Texas 11 months ago. Well, 10 months ago in November. He had 8 months. His policies have had 8 months to mature and affect the people of Texas. And they have. They've affected the people of Texas so much, and Trump is aware of it, that he understands that he will most likely lose Texas 5 seats or more. So he has to manipulate the process. Some people call it cheating, call it whatever you want, change the rules in the middle of the game. We have agreed as a country, it's not a law, but we've agreed to gerrymander after the census, after every 10 years, after the census every 10 years. He wants to change the rules in the middle of the game because he knows he can't win. The Republicans know he can't win.
No, he doesn't know he can't win. He just feels like this will give him a better shot at winning. It's the same way that I might, if I want to hit the golf ball 300 yards, then I'm better off going to the gym if I want to do that. I mean, it just makes sense.
Well, the point is we gerrymander. We all do that every 10 years. That's what we do. It's almost a gentleman's
Yeah, but
agreement.
why do you accept that as legitimate when we have in California, we have all these extra seats because we have illegal aliens that are counted in our census. So it's not fair here. I mean, it's completely unfair. There's all these residents who are counted.
There's illegal aliens counted in the census in Texas. And if you want to go talk about illegal aliens.
You think it's comparable? You think the amount of legal aliens in California are comparable to Texas?
Well, sure. Well, here. White people are 39% of the population in Texas. They represent 72% of Texas in the legislative body. I mean, if we're going to go tit for tat, I mean, we need to do that. The point is that you're changing the rules in the middle of the game because you know you're going to lose. That's what Trump is doing.
Kevin, were you there when I walked through how they tried to jail President Trump in the middle of an election last time? They had 6 different cases. All of them were coordinated by Joe Biden's White House to try to make sure he couldn't be president. Did you find that those rules were that was changing the rules in the middle of the game, that you start going through the underwear drawer of the former first lady because the president's about to announce that he's going to run for re-election? Did you find that to be changing the rules, or is that fair to you?
With specifically, what rule did you try to change? Help me out here. I don't know that I was listening to that part of the show.
Okay, well, I'm suggesting to you the left does not wait for our side to play by whatever rules are on the books. They change the rules all the time to make it easier for them to win. The same way they changed all those voter rules during the coronavirus. I got to run here, but it's a thoughtful call. Thanks, Kevin. But you guys remember the coronavirus? Do you remember what happened during that, where they changed all the mail-in voting rules? You could vote for 90 days ahead of time. You could count ballots in Pennsylvania 9 days after the election. What do you think that was designed to do? It was designed to change the rules, make it easier for the left. I am all for changing the rules if we can do it legally to make things easier for us. That's what we're doing in Texas. I compliment it. Shout out Larry Elder, the station from South Central. Shout out Junior Walker and the Miracles. I'm Alex Marlow, former intern of Larry Elder, now editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, and host of the Alex Marlow Show on the Salem Podcast Network, 5-day-a-week news show for you, and author of the new book, Breaking the Law, talking about the exposing of the legal system against Donald Trump. I talked about that a lot last hour. If you care to catch up on the shows via podcast, always a good thing to do. On the New York Times bestseller list right now, so you will enjoy it. Best reviewed of any of my books. Very grateful to the Sage for letting me fill in today, and all the great people at Salem. I'm in Larry's studio, as you can see, those of you who are watching on the Salem News Channel in Los Angeles, California, where we really have a front row seat to what is just one of the most unbelievable experiments that you could ever imagine. It's going on in this state where we continue to double down on some of the worst ideas imaginable: exorbitant energy prices, huge levels of regulation, huge levels of taxation, taking a massive surplus and turning into a massive debt despite the record level of taxes that we are able to absorb. And then people like me and Larry, we don't leave. Sean, why don't you leave? Why don't we all leave? Is it work? What's wrong with all of us? No, it's fun, though. It's a nice place. It's a beautiful place. Though you do get very odd things that occur here. I was driving home up the 5 freeway. I live just north of the city over the weekend. And the traffic was completely stopped. And I was looking at the southbound traffic on the 5. I was headed north. This is one of the major arteries, one of the biggest interstates in the country. It goes all the way up from the bottom of the state all the way up to Northern California. And it's Saturday afternoon. This is not peak rush hour. And I noticed there's not a single car traveling southbound. I'm thinking, this thing is big. There's a big problem here coming up. And then I see way off in the distance just a little flicker of a flame, just a little fire. And then I start seeing all these flashing lights. And I see one fire truck, then another fire truck. And then I see every fire truck I've ever seen in my life. They even got the fire truck that my 3-year-old plays with out of our garage, apparently, and they brought this to this scene. They had fire trucks on overpasses, apparently shooting down this fire, trying to put out the fire. And I was thinking, oh, I know what this is. This is a battery fire. And I thought the stage when I thought of this, because Larry has that great documentary out about the electric cars, the good, the bad, and the ugly that he's got out, and talking about how these electric cars that we impose on all of us, that we want these things, that they were going to be a solution to all of our problems. They were going to be a solution to carbon. The same carbon that Bill Gates is using to make butter now, that we were going to find this solution. It was all going to be these electric cars going to solve all of our problems. And even though we need to rely on African slave labor, if you guys want to show the DVD cover for Larry, I want to do that for him. It's such a cool thing. The electric vehicles, they are going to solve all of our problems. The only problem is they keep catching on fire. And I saw this and I was going, what is going on? There's got to be a battery fire. And I'm hoping it's a Tesla because I do kind of root against the Tesla. I got to admit, look, I'm grateful to Elon Musk for helping us win the election, and he absolutely did. But he's a big China guy. He loves China. He says that China rocks, and he thinks that their leadership is better than American leadership. And that really bothers me because they are a communist nation that imposes slavery on its people. They have concentration camps right now. I'm just not comfortable with his pandering to China. So it's kind of rooting for it to be a Tesla. It wasn't just a Tesla. It was a fleet of Teslas. It was one of those double-decker transport trucks. They were all on fire. Every single fire truck in the city was apparently there. There's a huge puddle of water, and it must have taken hours and hours, and completely shuts down all the traffic, all because of this hoax, this electric vehicle hoax that we've all had to go through. This is going to solve all of our problems. In the meantime, in the state, they're driving up the gas prices up towards $8 a gallon in California, and we're just all dealing with it. But that's why we need people like Sage. He should be the governor. We'd have so many fewer problems. We have too many fires out here. But I am grateful that it at least gives me a deep insight into the American left, which I'm able to use every day at Breitbart News and on the Marlow Show. And we're talking about a lot about some of these subjects today on the broadcast because it is a moment where we're trying to run up the score. We're trying to rack up victories as much as possible. But there are a lot of things that need to be done that are first and foremost. And one of the things that was most informative to me was coming of age in the conservative movement was how illegal immigration had really ruined the state. And that was the cardinal sin of California was that we allowed for illegal immigration. And what it did is it ruined our school system because the schools became more expensive. I learned this from Larry when I was a high schooler. He was explaining this, how it's very tough to educate people. And if you come here illegally, then you're better off in the schools than you are just running around the neighborhood. You're better off getting put into the school system. It makes it very expensive. It makes it very difficult for the students who achieve. Then now all of a sudden all these resources have to be dedicated to people who don't achieve as much. It makes the healthcare system more expensive. My wife works at a county hospital in Los Angeles. If you come in and you need a bone marrow transplant, the sort of thing that costs tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you can't afford it, do you not get it because you're an illegal alien? No, you get it. When we're drawing up the census, when we're drawing those district maps that are so important to Gavin Newsom, we're counting residents, even if they're illegal in the count. They might not get the vote, but they're part of the count that allows for California to jack up our rolls so that we get more seats. And then we gerrymander the seats to favor Democrats. And that's what goes on. And in the meantime, they're not sending their best, the way President Trump said. One ICE arrest after the next. I don't love doing this stuff because it's such a bummer on these shows. And it's a privilege to host these shows. I want to have fun with all of you guys. But we just reported Breitbart News today. ICE arresting an illegal alien accused of killing a high school sweethearts in Wisconsin. It's these stories are fundamental, and we report them out all the time. One of the stories that's been in the news throughout the day has been this illegal migrant who was apparently was a Sikh of some sort, but this individual had made an illegal U-turn in a big rig truck, and a car with 3 passengers ran in the truck and everyone died. And we learned the guy was here illegally. There should not be one instance of illegal alien violence in this country. Not one. They're all unacceptable. They're all unacceptable. There should not be one American family that's to suffer because they were victimized by a crime. We can all tolerate it if we have to pay a little more. We don't want to tolerate it, but we can tolerate it. But you should never have to tolerate the loss of a loved one, have yourself in physical peril because a illegal alien who has no right to be here showed up. And these fraudulent politicians that run this state and run the entire Democrat Party, to be honest with you, allow for them to stay to try to protect them, and weak Republicans aren't bold enough to take a stand to shut it down. And that really framed up so much of what I believe and sort of the fearless nature that we have at Breitbart News. The way we're able to take a punch so well is because I witnessed this along with so many of my mentors like Larry and so many of my colleagues, Andrew Breitbart, of course, among them, where we were just conditioned to accept things that were so illogical, that were so ridiculous. And eventually I found myself in Washington, D.C. while I was there. And I found that the city became increasingly unsafe while I was there. And this was fundamental. I got there in 2013. Obama was president. It was the center of the world. Things got even better with Trump because then it became not only the center of the world, but our guys were in charge. And that administration was tough sometimes, but he wins the election and did make things better in a lot of ways. It made it very exciting to be in the city. But as time went on, the city began to deteriorate in certain ways. And the vibe was off. All of a sudden, you were seeing a lot of crime. And then coronavirus hit. You would see a lot of the marching. You see a lot of the smashing of windows. You see a lot of the boarded up stores. And all this would happen. And we were just kind of supposed to act like this is normal. No, it's normal that every other shop in historic Georgetown is boarded up. It's not as pleasant to walk your dog on the iconic cobblestone streets there and to admire the architecture that's been there for hundreds of years and to go down at night to visit our monuments because maybe it could be because it's too unsafe for you. We were just told that, yeah, that's just how it is. But that's not acceptable. And Trump's doing something about it. And it's really interesting to track some of the reactions to this, some of the people, what they're saying. I'm going to give you a taste of what some people on the right are saying. This is Scott Jennings, our new colleague here at Salem. I want to play cut 9 for you guys. Sean, will you pull that one for me?
Well, what about that idea? What about the idea that this is, even if one supports this effort, it's a Band-Aid, right? It's not like hiring 500 additional cops in D.C.
And I think they do have a staffing shortage in the D.C. Police Department. They need to fix that. I don't know what's authoritarian about putting some extra eyes and ears on the street, getting criminals off the street to keep people from being murdered and carjacked. Nobody in their right mind believes Washington, D.C. is safe. And to say the president's trying to help us keep people from getting murdered and carjacked and we have to stop this authoritarian push, it's just sort of ridiculous rhetoric. These Democrats don't know what to do with themselves. Every time Donald Trump tries to do something, they reflexively feel the need to oppose it without thinking through the political implications for themselves.
You think Democrats are taking the bait?
Well, I think they're acting like idiots here. The city is crime-ridden. I saw a guy get murdered in Union Station in February at 4 in the afternoon.
All right, we got it.
I saw the body hit the...
He saw someone get murdered. And this was like in L.A. I go down to L.A. and I go into the city. And my routine is I live in just north of the city where it's sort of conservative and it's pretty nice and you can walk around everywhere. But then on the weekends, you want to eat and shop. You go down to regular L.A. And I see people who are I see shoplifting all the time. I see crime all the time. People are unpleasant. They're wound up. They're unhappy. This is what it's like in D.C., and Trump wants to do something about it. He can't stay forever. He's not going to. But he's trying to help out. He's trying to restore law and order. It's another one of those 80-20 issues, and the Democrats are falling for the traps. They fall for every trap because that's what they do, because they can't recycle. They can't cycle through their leadership. They have these leaders who are out of touch with the public. The public wants law and order. They want safety again. Trump can restore that, and he's got to stay the course here. I'm Alex Marlow in for The Sage. Your calls when we come back, plus a Chuck Schumer clip you won't want to miss. Alex Marlow here, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, author Breaking the Law, host of The Alex Marlow Show. I'm glad you're here. Peter Baker is New York Times, I guess he's the Washington bureau chief or chief White House correspondent. He's a guy who's an apparatchik for the establishment who is supposed to be reporting the news neutrally. This is what he says about D.C. crime. Play cut 6.
In the streets of a capital, the kind of thing you see in other countries, in autocratic countries, but autocratic leaders who are trying to assert control and power. If you really cared about crime in the District of Columbia, where crime is actually down historically, if you actually cared about crime in America, there are cities with worse crime rates than Washington, D.C. He's not sending troops into their streets. He's sending troops into the streets of the nation's capital, which has a special resonance. The idea that troops would be patrolling in any way, a nation's capital sends a message that we've never, seen again in this country outside of, riots and genuine uprisings that we don't see right now. Crime is at a low. As anybody who has grown up in the Washington area, as I did, I was born and raised in the Washington area, spent my whole life there, and it's never. We know what a crime crisis looks like. We've lived through that. This is not what that looks like.
He just exudes that alpha energy. It's just him and Comey are in a dogfight, Sean, for alpha of the day. He's falling for a hoax, and he's part of the hoax, so he's not falling for it. This is part of it, and I write about this extensively in Breaking the Law, which is that the reason why crime is down in D.C. is because they stopped reporting it. They stopped reporting it. That's how it goes. When you have a one-party town, that the easiest way to get your crime stats to drop is you just stop enforcing the laws, and then the crime stats go down. That's how it goes. So we did in L.A., it's what they do all over the country, because if there's not an opposition party to point out that you're doing this, then you can get away with it. And then you can announce on MSNBC, or what are we calling it, MS Now? It's soon to be MS Now. You can say that, hey, crime is down. But crime isn't down. Crime is up. We know it's up. And people are leaving because they're afraid. I left. It wasn't entirely because of that, but it made it less pleasant to be there. A lot of the magic was gone. And why do you want the magic in our nation's capital to leave? It could be a great place. It's got a historic architecture. It's got our museums. It's got our monuments. It is a really cool city at its best. At its worst, it's just complete lawlessness and chaos. And Trump is totally legal to do this, to act like he's a dictator. You're on the side of the robbers, the thieves, the villains, the murderers, if you don't want him to be able to clean up the city with laws that he's able to do. It's not even a question of law and order. All right, I promised a Schumer clip. I want to play Chuck Schumer. Cut 10, please, Sean.
And I want to pivot and talk a little bit about what's in the news today, and that is D.C. and Donald Trump's mobilization of the National Guard, the federal takeover of the Metropolitan Police Department. I want to get your reaction to everything that's happening in D.C. But first, a lot of folks on the Republican side, your Republican colleagues, say that they are very scared to walk outside in D.C., that they think this is completely the right thing to do. Senator, are you scared walking around Washington, D.C. these days?
I walk around all the time. I wake up early in the morning sometimes and take a nice walk as the sun is rising around some of the Capitol and the other monuments and things, and I feel perfectly safe. They're full of it. Look, here's what they've done, Aaron. Plain and simple. Donald Trump wants to distract. That's his game plan. It's been his MO for his first term in the presidency and now. So he's trying to make this a distraction.
That's good. Chuck feels very safe. Someone's got to explain to him that the camera sits above the screen on the computer, though, because he's staring down. It looks like I don't know what he's staring at. He looks like he's got some sort of a mental deficit, which he does, but that's not really a play here. Let's see how quick you guys are in the Salem TV channel booth. Do you guys recall when Chuck Schumer attempted to cook a hamburger to look normal, like a normal person, and he put the cheese on the raw part of the meat? The guy's never made a hamburger in his life. He puts the raw burger on the grill. I don't even know if the grill's on. And he goes straight in with the cheese. You have to cook the one side of the burger, then flip it, and then apply the cheese. He puts the cheese right on the raw burger, which is so epic because it proves that not only has Chuck Schumer never cooked a hamburger in his life, but no one on his staff has cooked it. Anyone who allowed for that photo to go out, whoever snapped the photo, whoever is in charge of his social media, all of his pages, no one put their hand up and said, hey, this is not going to go well. You don't put the cheese on the raw burger. But that's Chuck's perspective. So he's not relatable here. He's got security. He's not wandering around D.C. And it's kind of I don't know who this guy is, Parnas, but he's not. That's not a good question. Chuck's personal opinion is not really what's at stake here. What's at stake here is for the citizens of Washington, D.C., normal people whose lives are being hampered by the lawlessness that's going on. All right. I want to speak to more of you. Some of you are not in on this topic. I had a lot of calls. We got there it is. The cheese on the raw burger, and you get the grayest meat imaginable. Like, what is that? There's no way that's beef. The hot dogs are done. The burgers look completely raw, and I don't know what horse he got that burger meat from, but that cannot be legal. That is just completely out to lunch here. You can also see the cutting board is like there's nothing on the cutting board. Thing's never been used. The thing probably still has cellophane on it, straight from Sur La Table. Like that's where he got that thing and just putting it right next to the barbecue. Oh, so what a sad sack. I think he had 1,600 on his SATs. Can someone look that up for me? That's just I think he's supposed to be a smart person. All right. We got a lot of calls coming in on different subjects, but that's okay. I'm not afraid of that on the show. Raside, you've been waiting for a while. Raside, what's going on?
Hey, what's good, man? This is live from Detroit. That's Super Raside.
Super Raside. Sorry about that. I read that wrong. It says super here. It's my bad. It's Mea culpa.
Yeah. I'm an acquaintance of. I am a radio acquaintance of Larry.
Good.
So anyway, two subjects. One would be Kaepernick, and the other would be the laws, sentencing Trump. That's one thing that I agree with him with is the sentencing and getting tougher on crime. So let's go to Kaepernick, man. Who in the world do you think you is talking about don't nobody care about Kaepernick no more, bro? There are 60 million black people that care about his dossier. They care about Kaepernick getting back into the NFL. The majority of the people that are African-American that play in the NFL care about Kaepernick getting back into the NFL, and they care about his dossier. Let me ask you a question. Why is it that you Republicans don't like Kaepernick and police reform? Why is that?
Well, I feel like we don't like Kaepernick because he disrespects the country that's given him so much, a platform to give his views and to make lots of millions of dollars and to be a famous person and to get to compete in a child's game at the highest levels. It seems like a really nice life, and it just seems like he's not very grateful for that this country afforded him those opportunities. But I want to take on some of the stuff that you said, because I understand people might care about him. So why do you think ESPN is scrapping the Spike Lee documentary? I think it's a joke he's trying to get back to the NFL. I don't think that's true. I think he likes being an activist. We're going to disagree on that. But why do you think ESPN scrapped the Spike Lee documentary? Because I'm curious about that.
Okay, so just so we're clear, here's the thing. He protested for police reform. Don't play, bro. He did it because individuals were being wronged. Bad police officers were doing wrong. I'm all for good police officers. But when bad do wrong, they have to be reformed. That's what Kaepernick was doing that for.
It was not helpful for black people. I'll opine on that later, in my opinion. But why do you think ESPN cut the documentary? That's my question. Please answer my question. He left?
Because they're Republicans. They're Republicans, and they're petty. That's why.
So ESPN, which is part of ABC Disney, you think those are Republicans that are running that, but they commissioned it, they paid for it, they hired Spike Lee to do it, and then they just grabbed it. I supersede it. We're not going to agree on that one. I will take on your point about police reform, but I got to run. I'll be right back. This is Alex Marlow in for Larry Elder, a Larry Elder protege. Joel Pollak's going to join me, one of my colleagues at Breitbart News, in a second. But I do want to take some more calls. But first, to Super Raside's point about Kaepernick representing and standing for something for black people, that I don't doubt that he's right about this in a lot of cases, but I also find it to be a shame. I've done extensive research into this, and the main problem that's facing black people when it comes to over-policing is resistance to the officers. And if you comply with officers, then you live. Just about every time, with very few exceptions. Once every few years, maybe you get unlucky. But it's one of these things where you would think that a lot of this widespread crime that is allegedly perpetrated by officers is just because they're all racist. Well, it's not really the case. As it turns out, first of all, there's very few unarmed people who are murdered by police in general or killed by police at all in general. And far, far, far fewer of them get killed by police who happen to be black who weren't resisting arrest. And that's the main thing. And that's the problem. And the message really should have been, if you really want to help black people, from my vantage point, and again, obviously not a black person, but I'm a protege of Larry Elder. I've learned a lot from Larry, as well as many other people who I think are very well informed on this. It's really the compliance. That's the issue. Sometimes it's not fair. It's not a fair world, but occasionally you just got to be compliant. And if you're compliant, then you live, and then you can live to fight another day. And if you resist, then there's a chance you're not going to live, and that's not good. And if that was Kaepernick's message, I think he would have been embraced by more people. But instead it was essentially America is racist, and it starts with the police, which was not good for our cities. So I think he was a destructive force. And I can see a documentary, but ESPN cut it. Not me. I didn't cut it. ESPN cut it. So you explain that, Mr. Super Racide. All right. Brent in L.A. on line 3. Brent, what's cooking? You're on the Larry Elder Show with Alex.
Hello, Alex. It's an honor talking with you.
Oh, it's nice of you to say.
And I have always had immense respect and gratitude for Peter Schweizer's outstanding reporting for years. So I was shocked when I heard him compare the Russia-Ukraine war to Israel's righteous destruction of the devil's mass-murdering Palestinian predators. There is no reasonable parallel between these two conflicts. Ukraine is a corrupt, organized crime oligarchy. Russia is a centuries-old anti-human aristocracy. And the global jihadi Palestinians are just pure pagan pathology. Israel is the God-given ancestral homeland of the Jews, as documented in the Bible, archaeology, and 3,000 years of history, and the only combatant fighting for God, truth, humanity, and civilization.
Brent, that's a really great summary, and I highly doubt Peter would take issue with any of that. Well, what was the thing that that specifically that jumped out at you that he said that you thought didn't resonate? I mean, there might be some parallels on a geopolitical level, but I don't think that he disagrees with your characterization of those countries.
Yeah, well, I hope he'll restate it, because it came out in a way that I went, what? And I really don't think that's who he is.
Yeah.
So it was.
No, I'm sure he was just looking at it from a strategy perspective and a negotiations perspective. I think that he sees the Israel is a morally righteous country, and I don't think he sees. I think he sees Ukraine and Russia both being corrupt countries. So I don't know. I would be shocked if he took a lot of issue with you. But I got a person who's an authority on the matter who could dive in with me on this. That's Joel Pollak. He's a senior editor at large for us at Breitbart News. He hosts Breitbart News Sunday on Sirius XM on Sunday nights, and he's the author of many essential books, including one that's about to come out. That Joel, you can opine on this, but. Joel, welcome to the broadcast, and I'm glad you're here. And I want to talk about the Ukraine and Russia stuff, but let's, as a segue, talk to us about the parallels and why some people in our media do draw parallels between the Israel-Palestinian conflict and the Ukraine-Russia conflict. What do you see as the key similarities and differences?
Well, there are none. So... I mean, the only similarity is that members of our media who don't have maps of the Middle East probably don't have maps of Europe either. So if you're operating from a position of geopolitical ignorance and all you really care about is whether Trump supports it and then you'll oppose it, then I guess that's the common element. So if Trump wants to get to peace between Ukraine and Russia, that must be bad. And if Trump wants to defend Israel against terrorists, that must also be bad. So I guess that's what they have in common, that anything Trump does in either of these situations is bad.
Yeah, I think that's true, but it feels like a lot of people, I think, compare the fact that Trump would like to bring peace in both areas, and they're both age-old conflicts. And it is one of these ones where people are very dug in. It seems like on who's righteous and who's not. And I kind of agree with your assessment. But overall, it is they're always going to get lumped in, I think, because they're happening at the moment. They're the two biggest things. They occupy so much of our attention. Well, but Joel, hold that thought, because we're going to take a break. When we come back, you're free to opine on this. But then I want to get into what you observed today. And then hopefully we'll have time to move on to the Middle East and talk about your recommendations there. I know you got some big stuff coming up in that regard in your reporting. This is the Larry Elder Show. I'm Alex Marlow, in for Larry. We'll be right back. All right. Alex Marlow here for The Sage from South Central, the editor-in-chief of Breitbart News. Really pleased to be in today. Joel Pollak is on with me, senior editor-at-large for us at Breitbart. Also talk show host Sunday night, Sirius XM Patriot Channel, Breitbart News Sunday. Joel, I want to get right into what you observed today. Great vibes, as I've been saying, but we don't have the specifics yet. But it feels like Trump feels like he's on to something. Explain the optics. Why bring all the European leaders as well as Zelensky to the White House? And what you think a peace could end up looking like in the end?
Well, first of all, let's remember that the media were saying just yesterday that the reason these European leaders were coming to the White House was to protect Zelensky from Trump. They imagined that they were coming to the White House of their own volition, that they all just jumped in there and had to stop Trump from teaming up with Vladimir Putin to shove an unfavorable peace down Ukraine's throat. That's how the CBS host on Face the Nation put it to Marco Rubio, and he dismissed it as complete nonsense. Of course, the administration invited these leaders, and the reason they did so was that Trump knows he has to have Europe on board to make sure that they can deliver Ukraine. Zelensky on his own is a showman, and the show he put on last time was bad for him. It was bad for Trump's peacemaking efforts, and it also set back the peace process significantly. What Trump really needed to do was not to protect Zelensky from Putin. He needed to make sure that the European leaders kept Zelensky on track. And it needs to be clear to Zelensky and the Ukrainians that Europe wants this conflict over. And Europe also has interests that don't necessarily line up with endless war in Ukraine. The Europeans need to buy energy. We'd prefer they bought it from us, but they also would like to buy some from Russia. And so they need this conflict to end, to be resolved. And that was one reason. The other reason was what you saw in what the public was presented with, which was a united front of, as one of the participants put it, Team USA and Team European Union. Even though Trump is a Eurosceptic and many of the Trump-like politicians in Europe have been those leading the march out of the EU, like Nigel Farage in the UK with Brexit, Trump still wants to present a common front, the free world standing together. And I think he did that. It's actually extraordinary that, it was an extraordinary scene. And many political reporters said they'd never seen anything like it. Trump knows how to put on a show. But again, on Friday, our media were full of reporters and analysts explaining why Putin had somehow rolled Trump because Putin came and had a meeting in Alaska, and somehow this was terrible for Trump. And then Trump comes back Monday with a united Europe, and not just that, with all these European leaders and prime ministers and presidents and so forth saying what a great job Trump was doing and how he had opened a path for peace. This was the president of the United States reestablishing leadership of the free world.
Joel, I can't resist talking about the media in this, but we were told on Friday for some reason that Putin had won, even though it was clearly the opening salvo, and Trump's body language was very good and made you think that Trump was feeling confident. I mean, Trump's a showman, so he could have controlled it, but it looked like Trump was feeling very confident. And then you show up today and you got all the European leaders, all the people who we were told are allies with them were going to fall apart if Trump was elected. And then I thought he was going to get some of them up there with a baseball bat and a weighted donut on there, like Georgia Maloney, just like swinging, warming up in the bullpen. And she was going to get her own walkout song. I mean, it was such a party to have them all there. And it looked so cool. And Trump, of course, is the ringleader of it all, which was great positioning for him. And Zelensky's demeanor was completely different. He wore a suit. It wasn't the best suit I've ever seen, I have to admit, but he at least dressed up a little better. And he's trying to at least take this thing seriously, which it didn't feel like that a few months ago. It can't be nothing, right? This can't amount to nothing. It's got to be going somewhere.
Yeah, the Putin summit in Alaska never struck me as a massive win for Putin, although I was impressed by him. He delivered an extremely generous and gracious speech. He pointed to the fact that the United States and the USSR had fought together against Nazi Germany and Japan, and that there were Soviet pilots buried in Alaska. I thought it was all quite moving, actually.
Can I say this, Joel? Because I haven't thought of this, and we've been talking about this for 3 hours. But I actually said at the time during the speech, I said to my dad, Robert, who was our night editor at Breitbart, who was at my house at the time, and I said, he's going to have a podcast. I need to see a Putin podcast. I mean, this guy can roll. He's historically literate. Maybe better at that.
Yeah, it was a masterful speech. Trump was visibly impressed by it, but this was not a setting that favored Putin in any way. He traveled to the United States that's already giving the United States home field advantage, and Trump used that advantage. He had the B-2 bomber flying overhead with the F-35 stealth fighters, and that was a moment that Putin wasn't expecting. And then Putin got into the beast and drove off with Trump, relying on American protection. So I thought that the entire setting actually favored Trump, and there was nothing Putin could have done to take that over or to dominate it. But under the circumstances, he did very well. I think you can acknowledge that without granting him some kind of victory. And remember, this is a situation where everybody needs to win, otherwise it doesn't work. So Russia's got to get something out of it. Ukraine's got to get something out of it. And then, of course, Trump will get something out of it. By the way, I think this idea that it's somehow invalid if Trump is trying to do this to win the Nobel Peace Prize is insane. That's why the Nobel Prize was invented, to create these incentives for world leaders to create peace. What's wrong with someone actually trying to do it?
So give me your take on that since you introduced it, because I don't care. I think it was did Yasser Arafat get it? I mean, I block it out because who cares? I mean, it's just they've given it to so many dictators. And I always like to make fun of a few years ago, they gave it to these people who went around and got people who were never going to get a nuclear power to sign that they would not get a nuclear power. And then they got a peace prize for that. These nations have never get a nuke in a million years. Like, yeah, but they're committed to not getting a nuke. Like, who cares? And they gave them the peace prize.
Well, remember, there were some years when nobody got the Nobel Peace Prize because the world was at war. So there have been worse years, so to speak, for world peace. But look, Yasser Arafat did get it. He shared it with Israeli leaders who had worked with him on the Oslo Peace Accords. And although it pains me to say it, he actually deserved it.
Wow.
Although he undid all of his, he
at the time, you're saying it's possible. I get it.
Yeah, at the time. At the time. Later on, he went back to being a terrorist, and he started the Second Intifada, causing the murder of more than 1,000 Israelis, most
not
of them
good.
civilians. But yeah, not good. But there have been other people who have shared the Nobel Peace Prize. Christopher Hitchens made a huge deal out of arguing for decades that Henry Kissinger should never have received the Nobel Peace Prize. But Henry Kissinger went to North Vietnam, or not directly there, but he negotiated with them in Europe to end the Vietnam War. I mean, that's what the purpose of this is. It's to get people who might otherwise be bad guys to sit down and end conflicts. And that's why it has often gone to unsavory characters, because those are the people who find themselves.
But Joel,
in wars
I'm just telling you, gun to your head, would you rather have the Nobel Peace Prize or your son hits 2 home runs at his next baseball game? I mean, I know what I'm taking. I'm taking the home runs in a second. Joel, hang with me. You're going to explain to me why I'm going to join the Zionist conspiracy right after this break. All right, it has been a blast today. I'm Alex Marlow, by the way, if you're just tuning in. I don't think you are. Probably. Why would you tune in the last portion of the last hour of a 3-hour show? You wouldn't. You'd be here the whole time. Thanks to Sean. Thanks to Zach. Thanks to Richard. Thanks to Leslie. Thanks to Matthew. Can't believe you guys have a team of 5. It's so fun. I feel it's just such luxury down here. And of course, thanks to the sage himself, one of my mentors. And for all of you for subscribing to the Alex Marlow Show podcast on the Salem Podcast Network and give me a shot. I think you will enjoy it. And if you're compelled to want to pick up a copy of Breaking the Law, you will learn a lot. You'll be primed for the latest round of investigations that are coming. And perhaps you'll be a little inspired to contribute just a little bit more to this amazing conservative movement we're a part of, on the New York Times bestseller list right now. So if you got a copy, thank you. And if you want to help me stay on there, that'd be pretty cool as well. Joel Pollak is with me, senior editor-at-large for Breitbart News, talk show host, and the author of many books. The latest, The Zionist Conspiracy Wants You. And I want to be a part of it. Joel, what do I need to know about the Zionist conspiracy and why I should join?
The book is really about the lessons of Israel's success as applied in everyday life. You don't have to particularly care about the Middle East. You don't have to care about Jewish people. You don't have to care about Israel. But the story of how Israel became a success is actually really, really interesting and can be very helpful. And essentially what happened was the Jewish people, who had been victimized and oppressed and discriminated against, persecuted, murdered, decided essentially to reinvent themselves. And out of that, they created one of the most successful countries in the world. In fact, it's the only Western country today that is reproducing above replacement. And it's got one of the highest per capita incomes in the world, starting out from a very poor base. So it's a story of triumph over impossible odds. And there are lessons in that story that each of us can apply in our everyday lives for personal success, for happiness, for whatever.
I think that is a terrific thing. And so there's so many of us. I'm a Christian and always have been. But I always really admired the way Israel does business. You see the map of how small Israel is relative to the Arab nations in the region. They endure so much. You see it even portions of our movement are just so hostile to Israel for reasons that are just, they're almost metaphysical. They don't seem to be totally rooted in rationality, and yet it's there. And it's very enduring and spirited people. How do you feel about the state of the Zionist movement at the moment?
Well, one of the reasons I wrote the book was, when you're talking about the modern state of Israel, Zionism, which was the movement to create a Jewish state in the traditional Jewish homeland, seems like it is almost redundant. You already have a country called Israel. Why do you need a Zionist movement? Zionism just means supporting Israel, I suppose. But I thought, how does it become relevant to a broader audience? How does this concept become more relevant? And it really involves studying Israel's history and applying its lessons. But for a long time, Alex, I've been telling you that I thought that Israel would win a war with Iran. And I couldn't say exactly how, but I presumed that Israel would find a way. And that's part of the Zionist story, is that the Israelis always find a way. And really the key in this entire conflict was the beepers that Israel detonated in Lebanon, destroying Hezbollah's command structure. And that knocked out Iran's deterrent against Israel. And they had lots of other intelligence surprises, but Israel always finds a way technologically. So look at the whole history of Israel.
Joel, I got to run, but it's a great tee up, because you see how Israel softened the belly, Trump goes in and does more damage, and it just works out. That's why I love the Hanukkah story so much. We got to put a pin in that. We got to talk about that some more. I've always loved the Hanukkah story, underrated story. Thank you, Joel. Thanks to you, Larry Elder audience. Thanks to the sage himself. I'm Alex Marlow.